Welcome back to these series of Rafiki updates. I hope you've been enjoying the Rick Phillips and Guy Waters pre-recorded messages on 1 John and Luke chapter 6. I hope you've also been enjoying the videos from our various Rafiki villages and have seen so much fruit from the work of our 10 countries. I also hope you've had a chance to see some of the work here at the home office as well and meet some of our staff. I hope you've found that chocolate fountain. There is one recording somewhere in the YouTube channel. Anyway, in this short segment, I want to review with you why Rafiki has landed or chosen classical Christian education as our educational model. We have great opportunities, as you know, in Africa and perhaps here in the United States to help with the establishment of this education system. And we started and we committed to classical and Christian education almost at the very beginning of our Rafiki villages and our schools. So you might be wondering why. What's so great about classical and Christian education? Well, I'm going to give you 4 reasons that we believe give us good reason to establish this education system. And there are many more. But I wanted to go over a couple of these to you because all of you who are listening are our friends. And it's helpful for you to be able to explain this to others. So classical and Christian education, why that for Africa? First of all, I want to mention that, of course, at Rafiki and in every Rafiki village and in every school, Bible study is the cornerstone of our work. We do that here at the home office, and that also is key to our work in Africa. Every day, every child in our schools study the Bible. And in fact, every Rafiki village is studying the same book of the Bible. In fact, they're on the same chapter. So literally everyone is on the same page. You really can't grow in your relationship with the Lord or know the Lord without his word. So that is critical to the Christian part of our work. The other critical part of the Christian part of our education system is that every subject is taught from a biblical worldview, from math to science to music to art to grammar to spelling to PE, history. Every subject, rhetoric, logic is taught from a biblical worldview. And as you know, Rafiki also has its own curriculum. We have textbooks and student materials from preschool now all the way up almost through grade 12, all written from a classical and Christian perspective that is culturally sensitive to the continent of Africa. So why classical education then? Why that? Why not some other model? First of all, classical education is basically the best education for a human being. It has been the educational model that has created some of the greatest minds we have ever known, from St. Augustine to Aquinas to Calvin and Luther, G.K. Chesterton, C.S. Lewis, Tolkien. Many of our founding fathers were educated classically. It has helped to foster interests in the sciences, in literature, in history. Because of classical education, we have many of the advancements and things that we enjoy today. Of course, in the last 90 to 100 years, the education system in America has moved toward another model that is not classical. But there has been a revival of classical education in America, and we in Rafiki are hoping to see that established in Africa. And we want to help with that movement here in America as well. So number one, it's the best education for a human being. It provides integrated learning. It focuses on the great conversation, the great ideas that have universal truths. It focuses on truth and beauty and goodness. And so classical education is the best for human flourishing. So that's one reason. The second reason is that classical and Christian education has been the education of the church since the beginning of the church. As you know, Rafiki works with 23 African denominations. We work with and under the church in our 10 countries in Africa. So if we're going to bring them an educational model, then it ought to be the educational model that has been the best for the church over the last millennia or two. And so it's been the education of the church. So that's the second reason. The third reason is that classical education is the best education to wed, the best educational model to wed with a Christian education. The classical education model, the ancient thinkers, the men and women who were involved in the great conversation for the last 2,000, 3,000 years, all believed that there was truth. And so when you have Christian education and the Bible that has the truth, and so you want to have an educational model that supports that premise, that at least that there is a truth. The current progressive model that you find more in America these days basically believes that whatever is true for you is true for you, and what is true for me is true for me. So it has abandoned this idea that there is a truth out there. So it's very difficult to wed Christian education, biblical worldview, with a model that believes that there really is no truth. So classical education, even though Plato and Socrates and Aristotle weren't believers in Jesus Christ necessarily, they believed there was a truth out there. And so we want to use that as a model as opposed to the current model that does not believe there's truth. So first of all, it's the best education for a human being. Second of all, it was the education of the church throughout history. And classical education is the best education to wed with a Christian or a biblical worldview education. Number 4, though, is that classical Christian education, children who go through this system, young men and women who are educated this way, perform better than children almost in any other educational setting. Now, that sounds like quite a claim, but just recently, the Association of Classical and Christian Schools released a survey, a well-researched survey with credible statistics that proves just that. Since classical Christian education in America is now over 30 years old, there is now a base of young men and women between the ages of the early 20s up into their early 40s who have been through classical and Christian schools. Those young men and women were surveyed, and their answers and results were compared with answers and results from children who have been through these other educational systems, such as public schools, private schools, evangelical Protestant Christian schools, Roman Catholic private schools, and also homeschoolers. The survey found that children who went through, young men and women who went through Christian and classical schools scored better on every single area in this particular survey. For example, in all categories, CCE students, Christian classical students, fared much better on things such as college preparedness and performance. They were all better prepared for college and had better performance than young men and women from the other types of schools. There were a number of other measurements. It wasn't just how smart and how brainy were these children, these young men and women, but what is their character like? So according to the survey, young men and women who went through Christian classical schools were more likely to go to church and practice spiritual disciplines. They're more likely to volunteer and be an influencer in society. They're more likely to believe the Bible as the infallible guide for faith and practice. I'm telling you, if I was a pastor, I would make sure that there was a classical and Christian school in my church, because look what it does in the development of Christian character. Look what it does in the development of young men and women who will be godly contributors, and young men and women who will be able to navigate college, retain their faith. You know, many young people let go of their faith after college. Whereas because of the integrated way these young people are taught and the biblical worldview and the mind that is developed in these young men and women through classical education, they hold on to their faith. They are also better at interacting in society. They're able to communicate their ideas in a winsome way. So we have a link to this survey that I really encourage you to go and explore and read and become familiar with, because I think you will come away convinced at the value of classical and Christian education. It's something we are hoping to see go like wildfire throughout the continent of Africa. And we are also eager to help schools here in America, new schools, use our curriculum and Bible study in order to establish classical and Christian education. The Bible tells us, Jesus said, to love the Lord thy God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength. Classical and Christian education, in terms of an educational system, does that better than just about anything else in terms of school systems. If you want young people to love God with all their heart, soul, mind, and strength, this education system does just that. So that's what God has given Rafiki to do, and what we hope to see expand in the next 35 years, so that there will be a multitude of godly contributors in Africa and around the world.